I would argue that masturbation is the human animal's most important adaptation, the very cornerstone of our technological civilization. Our hands evolved to grip tools, all right, including our own. You know, this book was originally about video games. What is up, The Wanderer? My name is William Kitten. Yes, that's my real last name. And are you a gamer? I'm a bit of a gamer myself, and that obviously means I never read books. I'm too busy gaming. But even for an illiterate gamer like me, one book did manage to catch my eye, and that is, of course, the 2011 post-apocalyptic science fiction gamer novel, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, Ernest. You look like you would write this book. Don't get me wrong, after hearing the concept, I had high hopes for Ready Player One. It's set in the distant year of 2044. The planet is running out of energy, and the last vestiges of humanity have all been converted into gamers! Truly post-apocalyptic indeed. And everyone spends all of their time on this virtual reality console called the Oasis. You can do basically anything you want to in the Oasis, and the company behind it owns pretty much every single media franchise ever. So you could theoretically fight Bart Simpson to the death and then go grab a coffee with the guy from Tiger King. The possibilities are limitless. Now, James Halliday, the guy who made the Oasis, recently passed away from cancer. You could say he got a game over. This is the caliber of video game related humor we're going to be dealing with throughout the majority of this book. But before he died, he left a message to the world explaining that he coded a secret Easter egg somewhere in the Oasis. To find the Easter egg, you have to find keys and open several gates and solve riddles, and it's complicated. But the important thing is that whoever finds the egg first and wins the contest gets to own the company that runs the Oasis and gets about $1 kajillion, which is a pretty big deal. Okay, so cool setup. You have a lot of potential here for a fun, high-stakes mystery set in a world where pretty much anything can happen. Unfortunately, what we get is 374 pages of obscure 80s references, frankly, annoying, power-tripping, and awkward teenage flirting. Let's get into it. Whoa! Meet Wade Watts, high schooler by day, epic gamer by night. He lives in a stack of trailers and spends all of his free time studying 80s pop culture in the hope that it will help him find Halliday's egg. A few fun facts about him: his least favorite words are game over, he very strongly believes that religion is for stupid losers, and he has a cute, geeky girls playing ukulele fetish, so that's something. I love this character! Wade and his classmates attend school exclusively via the Oasis on a digital planet called Ludus, where, according to Wade, the only real weapons were words, so he'd become skilled at wielding them. This is, of course, referring to a few paragraphs earlier, when fellow student Todd13 insulted his avatar's clothes, and Wade deftly responded with, "Your mom bought them for me," without even breaking his stride. Now that is impressive. Wade's entire personality is built around knowing a lot about video games, and I don't mean cool video games either. Wade doesn't know the first thing about Mario Galaxy 2. I mean retro games like Tennis for Two and Heavy Barrel. Speaking of which, a good chunk of this book is just references. I feel like a lot of the draw here is Wade being like, "Oh, this kooky situation I found myself in is rather reminiscent of Level 3 Turbo Tunnel from the 1991 arcade game Battletoads." And the readers are like, "Oh, I know that! I know Level 3 Turbo Tunnel from the 1991 arcade game Battletoads!" And like, I kinda get why that would be cool, but Ready Player One takes it way too far. For example, after school, Wade goes to hang out with his gamer friend H in an online hangout room, and they just have the most pretentious, pointless argument possible for like 15 minutes just so they can stick as many references in this book as possible. After I beat H at 3 rounds of Tron Deadly Discs, he threw down his Intellivision controller in disgust and grabbed a magazine off the floor. It was an old issue of Starlog. I recognized Rutger Hauer on the cover in a Ladyhawke promotional photo. Somebody has nothing like yo, don't issue actually like still look Please making fires and sessions. Pull my turtle in the wars. The USA yes we know. No, I said she made it. The first month turning card. She called it suck. He was sizing the 3 years to I am sizing the 8. I have bounty grant. Why? Our arguments were often high in entertainment value. Like, I get it, you guys are geeks, I play video games too, wow, that's so relatable. And then, to make matters worse, this guy named iRock shows up, and he exists solely for the purpose of knowing less about 80s pop culture than Wade and H, so they can intellectually destroy him. And they keep bumping fists and everyone claps for them. I can't take it! This isn't just me being annoying, I promise. The constant references actually hurt the story. Ernest will even use them as descriptors. Here on the surface, Arcade looked exactly like the environment of the 1981 game Battlezone, another vector graphic classic from Atari. Dude, I've never played the 1981 game Battlezone! I don't know what that's supposed to look like! Anyway, we get more of this kind of thing for a while, just pages of references, and Wade corrects his teachers because he's so smart, but eventually the plot does progress. You see, the first clue about Halliday's Easter egg is a riddle that has a line about having much to learn, and that stumped everyone for 5 years, but Wade Watts, genius that he is the first person to ever realize that people learn at school. What if the limerick was saying that the tomb was hidden right here on Ludus, the very planet where I'd been twiddling my thumbs for the past 5 years? Then I remembered that Ludus was also a Latin word meaning school. I pulled up my Latin dictionary to double check the definition, and that was when I discovered that the word had more than one meaning. Ludus could mean school, but could also mean sport or game. Game! I fell out of my folding chair! I don't know. That seems like a pretty weak connection to me, but what do I know? Nothing, apparently, because as usual, Wade is completely and totally correct about everything, and very smart and handsome, and definitely not a self-insert of Ernest. Anyway, he finds and beats a demi-lich in an old arcade game on Ludus and wins the copper key, the first of 3 keys he needs to get the egg. That's cool and all, but wait! Before we get into that, let's talk about girls, because after all, every epic gamer needs an epic gamer girlfriend. And that rule applies to girls as well, because H is later revealed to be a lesbian woman, and Wade's reaction to that information is pretty much what you'd expect. I wasn't all that surprised, really. Over the past few years, H and I had discovered our mutual admiration for the female form on numerous occasions. I was actually relieved to know that H hadn't been deceiving me, at least not on that account. Anyway, to Wade, women aren't people? No, to him they're like some exotic alien species, both beautiful yet terrifying. Now, I'm gonna give you a moment to recover because I'm sure you all just swooned uncontrollably, but it gets better. This is Artemis, spelled with a 3 because of course it is. She was introduced earlier as a Rubenesque gamer girl blogger, which awooga is right up Wade's alley. So he cyberstalks her, and it is implied that he gets off to pictures of her in-game avatar that he stole from her blog, which is the saddest thing I have ever had to read. As it turns out, Artemis had already discovered the location of the copper key, but she just wasn't enough of a gamer to beat the demi-lich, so she had the displeasure of meeting Wade right after he got the key. It was Artemis. She seemed to be going for a sort of mid-80s post-apocalyptic cyberpunk girl next door look, and it was working for me in a big way. In a word, hot. Run while you can, Artemis! Artemis! They exchange a bunch of 80s references, shocker, and they bond over the fact that apparently noobs mispronounce Artemis's name as Art3Miss, which is just total balderdash. Ernie, my guy, you have crafted a world where everyone spends every waking moment obsessing over gaming and gamer culture. There is no way that anyone would ever mispronounce it Art3Miss. So anyway, Art3Miss and Wade really hit it off, and then they start to text, and oh god, ouchie ow, oof ow, my eyes they burn, oh god, ooch ow. Ernest Klein thought it would be a good idea to give us a closer look into the hormonal hellscape that is teenagers flirting online. So we get entire sections of this book that are purely dedicated to the chat logs between Wade and Art3Miss. Yes, after analyzing the available data, I've concluded that you must be a female.
As you may recall, I tend to ramble in real time. When I have to type out everything I want to say, I come off as less of a flibbertigibbet.
I don't think you're a flibbertigibbet. You're enchanting. The female of the species has always found me repellent.
I don't find you repellent.
How come the media always portrays me as some unwashed geek who never goes outside?
A few moments later.
This was when I dealt with the tedious business of cleaning and exercising my physical body. I hated this part of the day because everything about it contradicted my other life, my real life inside the oasis. Then I made a silent vow not to go outside again until I had completed my quest. I would abandon the real world altogether until I found the egg.
How old are you?
Just turned 18 last month. You?
Don't you think we're getting a little too personal now?
Not even remotely.
19.
An older woman. Hot!
How well do you know H?
He's been my best friend for 5 years. Now spill it! Are you a woman? By that I mean, are you a human female who's never had a sex change operation? Can I at least keep emailing you?
Not a good idea.
You can't stop me from emailing you.
I started emailing her. Oh, I forgot to mention that Wade's house got blown up earlier and his entire family died, but I think we can agree that the real tragedy here is his flirting skills. So basically there's this evil corporation called IOI, and they also want to win Halliday's contest so they can own the Oasis and fill it with, like, ads and microtransactions and stuff. There's an entire division in their company filled with people working together to find the egg, and they are called the Sixers, aka the Sucksors, and I quote, because they sucked. Anyway, they're led by this big evil game developer turned corporate tool named Nolan Sorrento, and the fact that he was a game dev in the past is the only interesting thing about him, so of course it is not delved into at all. Sorrento tries to get Wade to tell him where the key is and join the dark side. See? That was Star Wars. I can make pop culture references too. And when he doesn't comply, they blow up his house, and then immediately find the key anyway, so that's awesome. Things are looking dire, so Wade, of course, kicks it into high gear in his search for the Jade Key, the second key he needs to find Halliday's egg, except he doesn't. House or no house, the only thing he cares about is going on e-dates with his e-girlfriend Art3 Miss, who he has started referring to as Artie. Wade, Artie, H, and 2 Japanese avatars named Daito and Shoto, whose only personality traits are bowing, talking about honor, and looking the same, were the first 5 people to find the first key, so they are all celebrities. Wade and Art3 Miss used their newfound status to attend an extremely VIP party at an anti-gravity dance club. The 2 lovebirds share a romantic dance together, and by that I mean she gyrates her hips and he loads up a custom dance software program to make his avatar dance for him, which she is apparently surprised and delighted by. What? Are you telling me this whole time I could have been impressing girls by doing the equivalent of Fortnite dancing? Wade, of course, takes this opportunity to profess his undying love for her, and when she is understandably taken aback because they've never actually met each other, he decides to remedy the situation by saying,
Is it because I told you that I never had a real girlfriend, or that I'm a virgin?
One thing I want to highlight is that the reason Art3 Miss is so afraid of commitment is that in real life she has this birthmark on her face, and I guess she thinks that makes her unlovable, and that's fine. But in the movie they cast this objectively not ugly actress to play her, and she covers the mark with her hair the whole film, but she's still like,
Don't look at me! I'm hideous!
I'm so lucky that Wade Watts, notorious admirer of the female form, believes that beauty is more than skin deep. Like, it's a bit silly. Then the Sucksors bust in and raid the party mid-breakup, and Wade and Art3 Miss part ways. Oh my gosh, I'm so sad. I was so invested in their relationship. Now that he's single, Wade devotes himself entirely to finding Halliday's egg, so he moves to the big city where he's like,
I spray painted my window black because there can't be anything to distract me from finding the egg. I also purchased a high-tech sex doll and spent the next few weeks in a brothel simulation. This will surely lead me to the Jade Key.
He also uses a bunch of the sponsorship money he got from being famous to buy some extremely necessary gaming apparatuses, such as a high-end pain suit, which makes him feel pain in real life every time he's hurt in the game. Cool. As well as a smell tower, which replicates any in-game smells in the real world. I hope he doesn't use that in conjunction with the brothel simulator. That sounds nasty. While searching for the key, Wade stumbles across an old arcade Pac-Man machine, and then he proceeds to casually, play a perfect game of Pac-Man, which is something that only 11 people have ever done ever. But no, that makes perfect sense. You gotta understand, he's really good at video games. And then, nothing happens for a really long time. That's actually one of my big problems with this book, is that it wants to be a mystery novel, but the readers can't actually play along with the mystery, because the solutions to all the riddles are just the most obscure things ever that only Ernest Cline would ever have any chance of knowing. So you just kinda have to sit around watching the characters deliberate until one of them is like, Eureka! The captain's whistle in the second riddle is obviously referring to the toy whistle you could have gotten in a box of Captain Crunch cereal in the 1960s, and the dwelling loan is clearly the dilapidated house in Zork, the 1977 tech adventure game. I'd better go complete the Zork recreation of the planet Frobaz and then blow on a Captain Crunch whistle covering one of the holes to create 2600 hertz frequency in reference to the American computer program John Draper, obviously. Which is probably exactly what Art3 Miss said when she solved the second riddle and found the Jade Key, which she did. Wade and the Sixers and everyone else almost get their hands on the Jade Key not long after, and then we get another heaping helping of nothing for a dozen chapters. Wade fills the empty space by telling us all about all the cool referencey armors and weapons he's found and how exactly he found them in excruciating detail. You know what? This seems like a good opportunity to talk about my least favorite part in the entire book. In an entirely unnecessary flashback scene, Wade explains how he acquires his ship, the Vonnegut, and it goes a little something like this. I had looted the Vonnegut from a cadre of Oviraptor clansmen who had foolishly attempted to hijack my X-Wing while I was cruising through a large group of worlds in Sector 11 known as the Gamerverse. The Oviraptors were cocky bastards with no clue who it was they were messing with. I was in a foul mood even before they opened fire on me. Otherwise, I probably would have just evaded them by jumping to light speed. But that day, I decided to take their attack personally. Ships were like most other items in the Oasis. Each one had specific attributes, weapons, and speed capabilities. My X-Wing was far more maneuverable than the Oviraptor's large transport ship, so it was no trouble for me to avoid the barrage from their aftermarket guns while I bombarded them with laser bolts and proton torpedoes. After I disabled their engines, I boarded the ship and proceeded to kill every avatar there. The captain tried to apologize when he saw who I was, but I wasn't in a forgiving mood. After I dispatched the crew, I parked my X-Wing in the cargo hold and then cruised home in my new ship. I understand that this isn't as objectively horrible as like the Onision books, for example, but it still hurts my soul. We already know that Wade is strong. The other 200 paragraphs about how he got all his epic gear already established that this is such a needless, redundant power trip. I do not care that they didn't know who they were messing with. I do not care that you were not in a forgiving mood. Shut up, you are so annoying, Wade, shut up! Shut up, shut up, shut up! The Sixers start pulling ahead in the search for the egg and are nearly at the finish line, but after solving a few riddles about the retro rock band Rush in a section that felt pretty rushed to me, Wade and the others find the crystal key. Unfortunately, by the time they've all caught up, the Sixers have already erected an enormous, impenetrable force field around the location of the last few riddles that guard the egg, and as soon as they solve them, it'll be game over. Wade's really gonna have to pull out all the stops this time, and then he gets arrested. Which is exactly what he wanted! For you see, by getting himself arrested, he gained access to a private IOI server that the Sixers use, which he epically hacks, getting him a lot of information about the Sixers' plans as well as about Art 3 Miss, including her real face and name in the process. He then does what any human being would do in this situation and immediately sends Art 3 Miss a message telling her that she looks more beautiful in real life. You know, I'm starting to understand why he's never had a girlfriend before this.
Then he hacks himself out of prison and also hacks the Sixer force field.
Then, with the help of one of the founders of the Oasis, Wade, Art 3 Miss, H, and Shoto, Daito was murdered earlier in the book, which I neglected to mention because he's barely a character, all get together in real life and prepare to launch an all-out attack on the Sixer stronghold and save the Gamerverse!
Gamers.
Assemble. Wade's epic hack works, and the giant force field is disabled. And then they have this big, huge fight with the Sixers, and everyone has giant robots from obscure 80s media, and Art 3 Miss gets a robot that fires lasers out of her breasts, which is totally hot. And Nolan Sorrento, remember him? Cause I don't. He gets a Mecha Godzilla, and he tries to kill everyone, but then they kill him, and everyone gets blown up by a big bomb, and they all die, except for Wade Watts, because it turns out that that perfect game of Pac-Man earlier actually won him an extra life. Cool beans! The story ends about how you would expect, with Wade finding the egg, defeating the evil corporation, smooching his gamer girlfriend, and realizing that perhaps the real high score was the friends we made along the way. Okay, now, hear me out. This book isn't actually that bad. I mean, I wouldn't exactly call it the grown-ups Harry Potter. The best thing I can say about it is that it's entertaining, which is the most important thing for a book like this to be. While it's true that it uses a lot of giant robot fights and flashy references to try and distract you from the fact that all of the characters are supremely obnoxious, the robot fights are pretty cool. And just like Halliday, I too have hidden an Easter egg somewhere in this video, and the only way to find it is by smashing that subscribe button. Okay, if you have still yet to subscribe, please avert your eyes for a moment. Cool, right? Anyway, that's it from me. Game over. Excuse me. Book does crazy things to your mind.